Have you heard? It seems the 2026 housing crisis has quietly begun, and this time, it's not just a few small markets. 15 major US cities are in freefall. Home prices are dropping by 50–80% in well-known resort areas, high-rise condos in Miami and Naples are suddenly empty, and many homeowners seem to be looking at their insurance bills with a sense of dread. In Salt Lake City, after years of soaring growth with prices jumping over 40%, many homes are now stagnant on the market. Open houses sit empty, and investors appear to be pulling back day by day. Not only that, in Florida, hurricanes, flooding, and skyrocketing HOA fees are creating pressures that many average homebuyers have never seen before. It seems that if you ever thought owning a home or investing in real estate in the US was safe, now, reality is forcing many to reconsider every plan. In this video, we'll dive into each city, examine the numbers, and understand why the US housing market seems to be plummeting at lightning speed and how this could affect you personally. Cape Coral, Florida was once one of the hottest markets in the US. After the pandemic, it was seen by many as a promised land, from those dreaming of coastal living to investors thinking they had caught the perfect price surge. However, by early 2026, it seems that picture has changed in ways few expected. The median home price now sits around $333,561, down nearly 10% in just 1 year, with many homes selling for significantly less than their original listing. Cape Coral appears to be experiencing one of the steepest price drops in Florida, with declines outpacing other cities in the Sunbelt region. During the post-pandemic boom, Cape Coral home prices rose to unsustainable levels, in some cases over 70% higher than before. As the market adjusts, cooling off prices was almost inevitable, although the depth of the drop may still surprise many homeowners. At the same time, the number of homes for sale has surged, leading to longer time on market, and buyers now hold more negotiating power. Demand for homes has noticeably slowed, as potential returns are no longer attractive, interest rates remain high, and migration to Cape Coral has slowed compared to previous years. Additionally, Cape Coral is in a region prone to hurricanes, tornadoes, and high winds, with nearly 100% of properties at risk from major storms in the coming decades. Home insurance costs have surged, making coastal homeownership far more expensive. When combined with property taxes and HOA fees, monthly costs for homeowners appear to be a significant burden, especially for those who purchased at peak prices in the past. The average home price in Austin seems significantly lower than the peak recorded in mid-2022. At that time, many areas in the metro saw median prices over $550,000, but by 2026, market data shows median prices may have dropped about 20–25% from the peak, and many sellers have had to cut prices multiple times before finding a buyer. It seems that inventory, the number of homes for sale, is steadily increasing. According to the latest data, active listings in Austin have grown significantly in 2026, with nearly 15,000 homes on the market, a level not seen since before the pandemic. Some analysts see this as a clear sign that the market balance may have shifted more in favor of buyers, with sellers now facing a market offering too many choices for buyers. The reasons behind this trend do not appear to be a single factor, but rather a combination of developments over several years. In the post-COVID-19 period, Austin was one of the fastest rising markets in the US, as migration from other states poured in, particularly from major cities like California. Prices rose so quickly that many later said it probably wasn't sustainable. However, as the market began to cool, a major adjustment seemed inevitable, especially compared with previous price levels. From 2020 to 2022, this market was seen as one of the fastest growing in the Northwest US. But for many longtime market watchers, the growth is no longer crazy as before. Some market reports show median prices in Boise are nearly stable or only slightly increasing, with a few forecasts even suggesting slight declines or very minor fluctuations in 2026. This reflects a market adjusting after a hot peak, rather than continuing an unbroken upward climb. It's not just prices that seem to be changing. The way homes are sold also appears slower. Inventory, the number of homes for sale, seems to be increasing compared to a few years ago, and time on market tends to be longer. Some local buyers even describe the market as molasses, meaning slow and sticky, no longer moving at the fast pace it did when it first became popular. This likely resonates with people who have seen past market cycles, as it reflects a period of digesting existing inventory rather than a market racing ahead. One of the biggest reasons the Boise market seems different is the migration bubble story. In the early years after the pandemic, Boise appeared to be a magnet for residents from other states, especially California, where housing had become extremely expensive. Those coming for affordable prices and good quality of life sometimes unintentionally drove prices up too quickly. When that migration slowed, the market had to face the reality that supply exceeded real demand, which likely caused slower price growth and market adjustment. Home prices in Las Vegas, specifically in the Las Vegas-Henderson Paradise area, seem to have cooled or fluctuated slightly compared to previous peaks. Although the median price is currently around $480,000, this is slightly higher than last year, but still below or around the record highs recorded at the end of 2025. This seems to indicate that the market is no longer rising 10-20% per year like it did in the early post-pandemic years, instead stabilizing or showing only minor month-to-month fluctuations, reflecting a market that appears to be finding its balance again. This impression is even clearer when looking at the number of homes on the market. Inventory seems to have increased significantly compared to a few years ago. Reports show a sharp rise in homes receiving no offers, giving buyers much greater negotiating power than before. Homes no longer sell out within hours or days. Instead, they sit longer on the market, forcing sellers to consider pricing and marketing strategies more carefully. This reality seems to be shifting the market from a previous seller's market towards something more balanced, where the attitudes of buyers and sellers appear to be on equal footing rather than competing intensely. The shift feels like a deep breath after a rushed period, with both sides no longer chasing rapid price increases and instead starting to negotiate more substantively. One factor is the rise in living costs and service expenses. It seems that not only home prices, but also the cost of everyday services, from hotel rates to tourism-related operations, which are the heart of the local economy, have increased significantly. This makes Las Vegas potentially less attractive than before for those intending to move here and buy a home long-term, indirectly putting pressure on the housing market. After a period of rapid price growth, home prices in Phoenix appear to have cooled compared to the peak levels from a few years ago. During the strong growth years, many homes were listed and sold within days, making it easy to imagine prices continuing to climb. But by early 2026, the market no longer maintains that momentum. Some reports from major real estate analysis sites show median prices in the Phoenix-Mesa-Chandler area are more stable or only slightly fluctuating, no longer seeing double-digit gains like a few years ago. A significant portion of listings have had to lower prices to attract buyers, rather than being confidently listed as before. It's not just prices that appear cooling, but inventory, the number of homes for sale, also seems to be increasing. In recent months, there have been times when the number of homes on the Phoenix market was double or more compared to a few years ago. As a result, the average time to sell a home has lengthened, contrary to the hot market image frequently mentioned in the past. This suggests the market is adjusting from a seller's market to a more balanced version, where buyers gain negotiation leverage and sellers must rethink pricing strategies if they want deals to happen. Looking closer, median home prices in Phoenix currently range between $460,000 and $470,000. This seems more stable after previous large fluctuations. Interestingly, the new construction segment, once a highlight of the market during the early price surge, has also slowed in sales, with some listings sitting on the market as long as older homes. Overall, the Phoenix market appears to be in a stabilizing phase, rather than racing forward like a few years ago. It's probably not an exaggeration to say that San Francisco and the broader Bay Area once had some of the highest home prices in the United States. After peaking sharply around mid-2022, the median price in the area has cooled compared to that high, but interestingly, the latest data shows the market hasn't collapsed catastrophically. According to updated market analyses through early 2026, median home prices in the Bay Area have dipped slightly from the 2022 peak but remain historically high, around $1.2, $1.3 million, reflecting that prices seem more stable rather than dropping significantly. The fragmentation feels even more pronounced when looking closely at individual micro-markets within the city. San Francisco doesn't have many homes on the market, overall inventory is limited, and in some central areas, time on market remains short, reflecting buyers' willingness to compete for well-priced homes. But in other areas, especially those affected by remote work or declining office demand, homes appear to stay on the market longer, and listings have increased compared to a few years ago, making the market feel fragmented and uneven. Price segmentation also shows a clear divide. In high-end neighborhoods like Pacific Heights or Noe Valley, homes can still hold value and even attract buyers with strong financial capacity. But in areas outside the urban core, where remote work has become common, liquidity appears lower, creating a contrast between luxury and affordable segments. One of the biggest factors making the San Francisco market seem to pause for a breath is changes in the tech sector and work models. The city is closely tied to tech, but in recent years, many major tech companies have reduced office space or restructured workspace needs, making the downtown area feel quieter than before. For example, there have been reports of companies like Amazon preparing to exit a large office in the SF Financial District while keeping other offices in the city. If you've ever heard someone describe Myrtle Beach as an East Coast gem with its long sandy beaches, tourists flocking every sunny season, and vacation homes selling like hotcakes, that era seems to have passed. The housing market in Myrtle Beach, like many other U.S. locations in 2026, appears to be moving from a boom phase into an adjustment period. Price increases over 45% compared to pre-pandemic levels were frequently cited, making the market appear attractive to homeowners and investors. But the latest data from early 2026 shows a different picture. Median home prices in Myrtle Beach are now around $280,000, $290,000, with many transactions happening below the listed price, a clear sign that the market is no longer booming as before. It's probably unfair to blame a single factor when discussing Myrtle Beach. The market has been influenced from multiple directions, and one major factor seems to be the saturation of Airbnb and vacation rentals. Myrtle Beach attracts millions of tourists annually and has become a lively short-term rental market. But as thousands of Airbnb listings and other rental properties entered, the supply started to exceed actual demand in the off-season months. Occupancy rate statistics often show strong seasonality, with many units not rented for several months. This has likely led investors to question whether short-term rental income is sufficient to cover operating and maintenance costs, especially as tourism appears to have slowed compared to previous years. It seems that between 2020 and 2022, Salt Lake City and the Wasatch Front area experienced very impressive home price growth, with total increases exceeding 40% over a few years. That was a time when stories about cash buyers and tech workers coming from other states were everywhere, pushing prices higher than actual local incomes. But according to the most recent market data, median prices in many segments now hover around historic highs without climbing as sharply as before, in many areas only rising slightly, some stable, and certainly no longer giving the feeling of straight-up vertical price increases. Additionally, one detail that many early buyers from the hot market period would likely notice is that the share of homes sold below the listed price appears to be increasing. This is forcing many sellers to adjust their expectations, as buyers are no longer willing to pay top dollar as they once did. As someone once said, when everyone expects prices to only go up, that's when the market starts to change. And it seems Salt Lake City is right at that moment. High interest rates are clearly a hard-to-ignore variable. If you took out a mortgage at low rates over the past decade, seeing today's significantly higher rates is likely a mild shock every time you think about the monthly payment. Many buyers seem to be taking longer to make decisions, approaching new purchases more cautiously, which has slowed market activity compared to before. If you look at recent market data, you'll see that home prices in Naples remain high, but the story isn't as simple as a single statistic. Median real estate prices in Naples are currently around $500,000, $550,000, and have dropped nearly 7% compared to the same period last year, a sign that the market appears to be adjusting after a previous hot growth phase. In other words, Naples no longer seems to be a market where buyers can just put down money and wait for prices to naturally climb. Inventory, meaning the number of homes for sale, is also reportedly rising, and the time a home spends on the market seems longer than when the market was selling out. Some local agents call this period the Great Housing Reset, meaning the market has shifted from a high-price seller mentality to a stage where buyers have more negotiating power. Naples is located right on the Gulf Coast, which means prime locations also come with higher risks than many other housing markets. Large parts of the area can be heavily affected by hurricanes, floods, and storm surge. This translates into potential structural damage, repair delays, and slower transaction speeds in the hardest-hit zones. The impact of recent storms in southwest Florida has forced insurance companies to reevaluate risks, which seems to be reflected in residents' insurance costs. Insurers appear to be tightening policies, raising homeowners' insurance premiums, and even reducing access to favorable policies that many past buyers may not have anticipated when purchasing coastal property. It seems that home prices in Orlando are cooling compared to the peak years a few years ago. The latest market data show that the median home price in the Orlando-Kissimmee-Sanford area at the beginning of 2026 is around $380,000, $395,000, with some reports indicating a slight decrease compared to the same period last year. This doesn't mean the market is collapsing, but it may be gradually moving toward a more balanced state, rather than the accelerated growth many saw during the post-pandemic period. In particular, homes near resorts or popular attractions like Disney World and Universal Studios no longer appear to sell out immediately upon hitting the market, forcing some sellers to adjust prices to attract buyers. Not only are home prices slowing, but some statistics also show that the average time homes remain on the market is lengthening, and the share of homes selling below the listed price seems to be increasing. This reflects a cooler buying and selling sentiment. Buyers are calculating more carefully, while sellers face stiffer competition than a few years ago. No one wants to think about insurance or HOA fees when dreaming of a home near the theme parks, but these costs seem to have a noticeable impact on the market. In Orlando, homeowners insurance, though not as high as in coastal markets, is still a factor that adds significantly to total homeownership costs, especially as mortgage rates remain higher than in previous years. If you ever thought of Tampa simply as a warm Gulf Coast city with Florida sunshine and the dream of affordable homes, you may need to update your picture of the market in 2026. It seems the housing market here no longer reflects the steady price increases and hot-selling image of a few years ago. Instead, Tampa appears to be going through a deeper adjustment phase, forcing both buyers and sellers to reassess what they hold. Tampa Bay, like many other areas in Florida, seems to be cooling significantly after experiencing strong price growth throughout the post-pandemic period. According to the latest data, the median home price in Tampa Bay is currently around $380,000, showing a slight decrease compared to the same period last year, a clear contrast to the everything only goes up feeling of previous years. Tampa sits right on the warm Gulf, which many once considered a major draw. But it seems that climate risks, especially hurricanes and flooding, are becoming an unavoidable factor when evaluating real estate value in the area. These costs are not trivial. Buyers in coastal or low-lying areas may face significantly higher homeowners and flood insurance than average, making total homeownership more burdensome. As buyers calculate total monthly costs, they are likely reconsidering what price they can actually afford, which partly slows down buying activity. In Tampa Bay, areas such as Hillsborough and Pinellas may face much higher insurance costs due to flood risk and proximity to the coast, adding another psychological barrier for buyers. If you once thought Tampa could be saved by rental income, the reality doesn't seem entirely that simple. The rental market, especially the short-term vacation segment, like Airbnb, also appears to be under pressure. Some 2026 market reports note rising vacancy rates in rentals, making it harder for investors to achieve expected income. In previous years, the real estate market in the Jacksonville area had been rising at a pace higher than most other areas in Florida. But according to the latest updated data from home price reports, the average price is now around $280,000, $282,000. And notably, this value has dropped about 3.64% compared to the same period last year. This number is not a 2008 style crash. There are no catastrophic drops over a few weeks or months, but it is certainly a step back from the continuous upward trend of the past several years, making those who once expected strong gains no longer feel the same guaranteed rise as before. It also appears that the average time a home stays on the market is lengthening to roughly 50-60 days, a sign that transactions are no longer happening as quickly as before. When homes remain in inventory longer, buyers have more time to consider and negotiate, which seems to make the market cooler and reduce the sense of urgency in buying. Jacksonville is known for its wide rivers running through the city, along with the nearby coastal areas, something many call a waterfront privilege. But it seems that comes with hidden climate and environmental risks. A significant portion of property in Jacksonville is at risk of flooding or prolonged weather events, according to regional climate analysis data. As these risks increase, homeowners' insurance companies seem to have to reassess their exposure and push insurance costs higher, something that first-time buyers or current homeowners cannot easily ignore. Perhaps you remember the days when Miami was a golden name on many people's retirement lists. bright sunshine, high-rise condos reflecting on the blue ocean, and a real estate market that seemed only to go up. But it seems the Florida dream is starting to show cracks, and these cracks cannot simply be patched over with a fresh coat of paint. By 2025, homeowners insurance in Florida had reached an astonishing average of $8,292 per year, an increase of 18% in just 1 year. And forecasts through the end of 2026 suggest that number shows no sign of stopping. Let's do a small calculation. From 2022 until now, insurance costs in South Florida have risen by a cumulative 30–40%. For beachfront condos, the number is probably even more crazy. It seems we are paying to protect a property that even insurance companies fear may be submerged by rising seas and superstorm. It's almost absurd that insurance costs sometimes exceed a full year's maintenance expenses, isn't it? There was a time when people said that just owning a condo in Miami could generate enough income from tourists to live comfortably. But looking at the reality in March 2026, the average occupancy rate in Miami hovers around just 53–54%. What's notable is that seasonal revenue differences seem to be turning into a bottomless pit. While you might earn over $6,000 in March, by September, that figure may drop to less than $1,800. Meanwhile, fixed costs, taxes, and insurance never decrease with the season. It seems current Airbnb owners are now forced to endure losses during low seasons, hoping for a tourism miracle that is threatened by geopolitical instability and service prices that are absurdly high. You may have noticed that the usual hustle and bustle of the New York real estate market is slowing down quite noticeably, although home prices seem to have only dropped slightly around 3% to 5% depending on the area. What's striking is the freeze in transactions. Ironically, luxury apartments that were once the pride of the elite now seem to sit waiting for new owners twice as long as they did a few years ago. Potential buyers, especially those experienced and cautious like yourselves, appear to be standing on the sidelines to observe rather than jump into a market where liquidity seems to be evaporating faster than a morning coffee in Central Park. Even with stable home prices, owners' wallets are still being eroded by sky-high property taxes and building maintenance fees that rarely decrease. Imagine this. You own $1 million condo, yet it feels like you're working for the building itself to maintain amenities you may hardly ever use. Could keeping property here now feel more like a psychological burden than an asset accumulation? The luxury condo market, traditionally the playground of seasoned investors, seems to be facing a harsh reality. With rental yields in New York currently hovering around just 2% to 3% after factoring in massive operating costs and taxes, putting money here may no longer be a smart move for those seeking to preserve capital. You probably remember the days when Los Angeles was celebrated as the land of limitless dreams, where real estate only went up faster than a young star's career. But entering 2026, the City of Angels seems to be coming down rather painfully. That sparkling soap bubble appears to be leaking air, and practical people like us are probably not too surprised. Those who once confidently signed million-dollar mortgages based on six-figure salaries may now be facing a harsh reality. As income disappears, demand for homes seems to evaporate as well. Perhaps we are witnessing the inevitable outcome of a market that was overinflated with unrealistic expectations. For those who prioritize stability and real value, seeing home prices drop significantly may seem like a necessary adjustment, albeit a delayed one. Perhaps the most ironic thing in LA right now is the vast gap between real estate prices and what people can actually afford. With wages seemingly unable to keep up with the high cost of living, it's no surprise that foreclosure rates are showing signs of increasing. It seems many have tried to stretch to own an address here, but banks' patience is limited. It's hard not to feel a bit of irony seeing lavish homes left vacant simply because their owners were overly optimistic about their financial capacity. Could the California dream now be turning into a financial burden that even the hardest working individuals find exhausting? So the overall picture of 15 U.S. cities undergoing dramatic changes in the housing market in 2026 has become clear. From beachfront resorts and high-rise condos to inland urban areas once hot with tech workers and investors, many may be wondering whether their dream of homeownership still looks the same as before. We're curious what you think about this situation. Is this an opportunity for smart investment or just signs of more challenges ahead? Each city seems to tell its own story, but together, they paint a thought-provoking picture of the U.S. housing market in 2026. Share your opinions and experiences in the comments. Which city do you think is highest risk and which still holds opportunities? Let us know. One more thing before you go. Please note that the information in this video is based on publicly available sources and official reports. It is intended for general exploration and informational purposes about different U.S. attractions. If you are considering living, investing, or traveling, be sure to review official sources and consider your personal needs before making any decisions. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.